Hey guys, welcome to another Samlish video. Today I've got another special designer phone to look at for you guys. This is the LG KE850 Prada. And last time we took a look at this Dolce & Gabbana Motorola Razr V3. Now we're going to be taking a look at this LG Prada. And I've got a complete box here, so we're going to be unboxing it, taking a look at the phone, and also looking at some of the history of the phone because it's quite interesting. This is actually a dedicated model. This isn't like a Prada rebranded version of another existing LG phone. This is a collaboration between LG and Prada, which is pretty interesting. So anyways, let's move on to the unboxing. Alright, so you can see the outside of the box. Looks pretty unassuming. We've got some LG branding, very little branding. Model number, IMEI, serial number, all that kind of stuff. And then we just pop this open and we have the actual box here. Now this isn't quite as flashy as the Dolce & Gabbana box, but it's still a really nice box. It's got a subtle appeal to it. It's very high quality feeling. No plebeian LG branding, only the Prada brand front and center. This looks like it could hold a watch or something, or a pair of sunglasses, not really a cell phone. There's no other branding on it except the Prada brand. Now, it was actually pretty hard to find this phone, so I actually had to import it from the UK, but there's a lot of stuff to get into with this box, so let's open it right up. Or actually, let's take a look at the box first. So in the front, we got our Prada logo there. It's got that sort of Prada leather texture on it. This obviously isn't real leather, but the box is very robust feeling. And really nothing else on the box. We'll lift this top up and we have the phone presented right on top. More of this leathery texture here and a little pull tab here. And we got the phone. Of course, I'll show you the phone later. You can see the attention to detail because you actually have more of this leather stuff on the inside of the box. Let's pop this off. Let's see what else is in here. So we got a lot of accessories in here, and of course there better be a lot of accessories because this phone was pretty expensive, and I'll talk more about that later, but let's take them all out. So that's everything out of the box. As you can see, nothing else in there. There's actually a piece of the phone in there because the phone has seen some better days. We've got all our accessories out here, and where to start? I guess the quick start guide. So let's take a look at some of these accessories. Got our quick start guide here in a black and white Prada theme. Lots of, how to use the touchscreen. This was actually the first capacitive touchscreen phone to hit the markets before the iPhone, actually. So there's kind of some instruction on how to use the screen because not really, no one had really used a capacitive touchscreen before. All the touchscreens on phones were resisted with styluses, or you had buttons on your phone. So yeah, we got the basic stuff: how to put the battery in, how to take a photo, how to navigate the menu. Nothing really too crazy there. And it is a Prada manual. Now we got the instruction booklet here. Pretty standard stuff, nothing really too interesting in here. Just flipping through it. It's only in one language, so this is all English, so it is quite a hefty booklet. And it just goes through the features of the phone, which we'll of course look at ourselves. We don't need an instruction manual. We also have a leather case here, wrapped in this bag. Now actually everything did come packaged in little sort of static proof bags like this. However, I couldn't actually fit everything in the box with the static proof bag on, so I just took the static proof bags off. I still have them, but they pretty much all look like this, and they all have a little label on there. Nothing too interesting, but here we have the leather case. Slide this out. This isn't a very effective case. I'll talk about that. So you can see, got the Prada brand. It's very rigid, and if we have the phone here, One of the reasons why it's not so effective is this is a touchscreen phone where you need to use the phone. You touch the screen to use the phone, obviously. And while it's in the case, you can't actually use the phone. And you have to take it out every time you want to use the phone, which is a little inconvenient, especially considering how tightly this case fits to this phone. It's not exactly the most protective case either. There's no sort of microfiber inserts in there, so if you get any pocket dust in there, it's going to scratch up the completely plastic exterior of this phone. And I guess it does offer some scratch and drop protection, but the top portion of the phone is still exposed, so it's really more of a fashion accessory than a protective case. So, and I suspect that's why the phone is very heavily used, but the case looks like it's never been touched before. When they say it's leather, I'm not really doubting them, because it's not like leather is some super hard to find commodity, but it's a really weird leather. It's very, you know, plasticky. Not really plasticky, but it's very brittle. And it's also got this interesting Prada texture on. I've noticed this texture on a lot of Prada stuff. So it's kind of a signature case, I guess. It does look really nice with the phone inside of it, you know, the Prada logo exposed. Prada logo exposed there. It does look nice, and it is pretty sleek. Next up, we've got our charger. As you can see, this is a UK style wall adapter, and it's pretty bulky that you can't take this off like you could in, say, a BlackBerry. And at the other end, you've got this LG proprietary connector here for charging and data transfer. That's that. Not really interesting. We also have a USB 2.0 data transfer cable with that same proprietary connector and a USB type A connector on the other side. And you can actually charge the phone through this cable, sort of like the Motorola Razr. You can't use a, you know, charging brick with it, like a USB wall adapter. You actually have to use a computer's USB port, and then it'll charge that way for whatever reason. But there's the USB cable, and we have some more stuff here. We also have a little envelope here with the Prada logo embossed on it. And this is actually the cleaning cloth. Take this out, you can see we got a little Prada branded microfiber cleaning cloth that's never been used. This goes in this little envelope. We also have a SD card adapter here. This phone shipped with a 512 megabyte SD card adapter, or micro SD card, but we have a 2 gigabyte SD card included here, which I think is the maximum this phone can read. And it did come with this little SD card adapter. We also have a mini DVD driver disc, Prada branded, of course. And now we got our audio stuff. We've got, since this phone doesn't actually have a headphone jack, we do have a actually reasonably long headphone jack adapter here with a right-angled proprietary connector on this side, and then, you know, some inline controls and a 3.5mm headphone jack on this side. Got a play, pause, stop, skip tracks, send and end for your phone, a hold switch, a microphone, and volume buttons, as well as a little clip here, and a little metal accent too, which is very nice if it will focus. Whatever, you can see it. And it is nice that it comes with 3.5mm instead of 2.5mm, because that means you can, you know, actually listen to music on this with normal headphones. And we have some headphones included here. We also have some foam ear tips, which really don't do much. But we have the headphones themselves, and they actually sound reasonably good. You know, for the time, this phone came out in, what, 2006, 2007. So they actually don't sound that bad, considering they were bundled with the phone. I mean, I guess the phone was pretty expensive, but I would compare the sound to Apple's EarPods, which started shipping with the iPhone 5 in 2012. So they don't sound that bad, you know, they're usable. Of course, they fit absolutely terribly. They don't fit good in your ears at all. And there's also a little bit of rattling with the bass. But, you know, other than that, they honestly don't sound that bad. They do look kind of nice. I do like this sort of angular look here. And it's very short, which makes sense because this is so long. But what's interesting is that the earbuds are actually two different lengths. I don't know why that is, but it makes it really weird to listen with these, which, you know, as you can see, these are pretty much unused, which doesn't really surprise me because, I mean, this cable's ridiculously short, and then we have this really long cable here, and I don't know why that is. So yeah, that is the unboxing of the LG Prada. Let's take a look at the phone. Alright, so let's take a look at the phone now. It's extremely small. The screen is about 3 inches, I'd say, and I have some other phones here to compare it with size-wise. So we got the first iPhone here. As you can see, this thing's kind of its rival. We have an iPhone 5C. It's a lot bigger. A closed Motorola Razr V3, V3i. Actually, let's hold them up. You can see this thing is a lot smaller than the iPhone, about the same thickness. As I smash them together. But yeah, it's a little thinner, or it's a little thicker than the iPhone 5C, and as you can see, a lot smaller, much smaller. And I'd say it's actually about the exact same size as the Razr V3 closed, give or take some. See, thickness is about the same. So, you know, it's a very small phone, and especially comparing it to a modern phone here, we have a Galaxy S8. I mean, it's kind of hilarious. It's, you know, it's still thicker than the S8 is in its case. So it's quite a small, chunky little phone. And I actually do like the design, the way it looks. It looks a lot like the iPhone 4S. I'm just going to grab one here. It looks a lot like an iPhone 4S with the, excuse the shattered back, with the black front and back and the silver mid-frame. I think it's a very attractive look. However, the materials of the phone are extremely cheap. As you can see, it's seen better days. You can see the chrome is chipping, the buttons have fallen off. The charging port cover is gone, the Prada logo is coming off. Scratches on the back. And you can see, by the way, that the accessories are kept. It's not like the phone was, I mean, maybe the phone was heavily abused, but it just seems like it was used as a daily driver. You know, probably without a case, but still, you can see it hasn't held up super well. And I do realize that oftentimes luxury fashion brands make a cheap product, then slap their logo on it and make an exorbitant profit. But it's not like this is an existing LG model with a Prada logo slapped on it. You know, this was actually an effort by LG to bring their phones into the luxury market. You know, have their own luxury handset to compete with Motorola and Nokia. It was really expensive at the time. We'll get into that. And, you know, it's not like premium materials on phones didn't exist. Take, for example, the Razr V3. This is mostly aluminum, magnesium, glass, you know, pretty nice materials. So I just don't know why they didn't at least put some metal on the sides or give it a metal back. And I'm just kind of disappointed with the quality, and it just hasn't held up that well over the years. Competition like the Nokia 8801 and the iPhone, the first iPhone here, just had much better materials. You can see even the iPhone hasn't held up that well, but you know, it has aluminum, stainless steel, glass, a little bit of plastic, but this is just 100% plastic. You know, there is actually, the camera lens is glass, to be fair, which is nice, so that means the camera lens won't scratch. And there is a little metal accent here, but it's all plastic pretty much. Alright, so before I get too much into the history, let's actually just take a look around the phone. So on the back here, we've got a little selfie mirror, our 2-megapixel autofocus camera capable of video, as well as the flash. And we have some branding here from the lens makers that I'm not even going to try and pronounce. We've got our LG branding. On the side, we got our charging and data port, a volume rocker, which also doubles as scroll up and down through the menus, a mute switch or profile switch or whatever you want to call it, a microphone on the bottom, and the battery door, eject button. On the other side, we got our MP3 shortcut, which also doubles as a camera shutter. And this is where the lock button would be, which just disables the touchscreen while it's in your pocket. We've got a little external antenna underneath this cover here, and a lanyard loop thing right there. Nothing really on the top. On the front, we've got our earpiece, which is also the loudspeaker, Prada logo, 3-inch plastic capacitive touchscreen, and our 3 buttons. We've got a button marked C, which is clear, which is the back button pretty much. Got our end call, which just takes you back to the home screen, which is also the power button, and our send call, and obviously these end and send calls. And of course, I can't forget showing you the battery here. This is an 800 milliamp hour removable battery. And we've also got our SIM card, our mini SIM, and micro SD right there. I used to think this was a full-size SIM, but apparently full-size SIM would be like the size of this phone. Let's put that back in. The phone's capacitive touchscreen was truly revolutionary, and this phone was very influential in changing the way that we interact with our devices today, even if it wasn't ever as popular as the iPhone. That being said, the LG Prada certainly wasn't a failure. It sold 1 million units within the first 18 months, there was a waiting list for the phone, and LG made an estimated $500 million off of the LG Prada's success. Because of this, other companies followed suit. Samsung made an Armani phone, which didn't do well, and LG also followed up with the LG Prada 2 and LG Prada 3, which I'll put on screen. The LG Prada 3 being an Android phone, and the Prada KE850 and Prada 2 were running on a proprietary Java Flash Prada UI. I'd also like to compare the LG Prada to the first iPhone because they both use this very similar display technology. They weren't really supposed to compete with each other, I guess, because this is kind of, this wasn't really LG's attempt at making a phone for the masses. They expected sales to not be super great with this phone, and this was, Apple's kind of attempt at a phone for the masses, and this is designed to be a smartphone. This is designed to be a luxury product. But they do both use, they both look similar. They have a very similar design philosophy where, the front of the phone is dominated by this screen, and that's the primary or exclusive way of interacting with the phone. And they both have these capacitive touchscreens. This one is a glass multi-touch capacitive touchscreen, and this one plastic non-multi-touch but still capacitive touchscreen. They obviously have very different materials, this one having much better materials, but I think this one is a nicer looking phone in my opinion. There was also a lot of hype for both of these phones, obviously a lot more hype for the iPhone because, this was Apple's first attempt at their own phone. I mean, you had the Motorola Rocker E1, but that was kind of a collaboration between Motorola and Apple. This was Apple really making an attempt at their own to do a phone, and you can see it turned out very well. Everyone knows about the iPhone, but the Prada had some hype too. This was a pretty unique product. LG, a phone company, and an Italian luxury fashion designer aren't really, is not something you see every day. So there was some hype around this. This was LG trying to break into the luxury market. Then there was user experience, which the iPhone completely trumps the LG Prada in user experience. Apple spent a lot of time working on the, iOS. It didn't have a lot of features. iOS 1.0 didn't have an app store. There wasn't even a copy and paste. The Safari was kind of weak. But it was very fun to use. There was, Apple had inertial scrolling, cover flow, all of these really cool fluid animations. Whereas this feels like kind of a half-hearted attempt at bringing a feature phone operating system to a touchscreen. It does look cool. I will give it that. It does look very ahead of its time. It looks really modern. It's not a lot of skeuomorphic icons like iOS had. It looks a lot more modern today, but it's just not very nice to use. And then there was also the price. This was a lot cheaper, and this was quite an expensive phone for the time. And I actually don't have the price figures right with me, but I do on another page. So there was quite a big price difference between these two, and this was already considered an expensive phone, so people bought this one. There was also marketing. Like I said, this was marketed as a luxury fashion device that was kind of a niche product, bringing LG into the luxury market. And this was just, Apple's attempt at a smartphone. So there was quite a bit of difference in marketing. There's also features. This didn't really have a lot of features at launch. This had your standard array of phone things, web browser, multimedia messaging, Java games, that kind of stuff. We'll look at that when we actually take a look at the software of this phone and go through it. Now I'm going to talk about why I think the LG Prada wasn't as successful as the iPhone. This was a niche product that really would have only appealed to people who were looking for a fashion accessory, were willing to spend a lot of money on it. And most people view phones as tools and value function over form. And like I said, the LG Prada did have a reasonable amount of features for the time. Its price just didn't justify this. Most smartphones, like Blackberries, Windows mobile phones, were just more capable. The phone didn't even have Wi-Fi, and it was just kind of a clunky user experience. But like I said, I do applaud them for their nice-looking design and, of course, groundbreaking technology. And I do think it's interesting that they collaborated with Prada. And honestly, I probably would have wanted one of these back in the day if I was old enough to have a phone. And this isn't a super fair comparison, mind you. Like I said, the LG Prada was meant to be a fashion phone and had that feature phone-like experience. It was expensive, and it did use this groundbreaking technology, so I feel like they could have done a little bit more with it, but it's a little more fair to compare this to something like the Motorola Razr, in my opinion. And it was the first of its kind, so it's not going to be perfect. There is that rule, never buy, the first generation product, but it does still feel a little bit rushed. All right, so let's take a look at this. Powered on here. Hopefully we have enough battery. Get that to focus. And there is a startup sound, which I'll turn the volume on so you guys can hear the system sounds. I'm just gonna, let's vibrate. There we go. Right, so here's the phone. You can see we got this home menu here. By default, there are some widgets, like a clock widget that you can move around. I thought that was kind of annoying, so I just got rid of it. And you do also have, the date and the carrier there. But we got some shortcuts here. We got our app drawer, our phone dialer, our messages app. We got our text message, multimedia message, email, that kind of stuff. Nothing really super interesting. Voicemail. Got some templates for messages. And we've also got our contacts. Open up the app drawer. We have 4 categories here. We got phone stuff, media stuff, tools and settings, and we also have an on-screen back button. So we already looked at the dial pad, the contacts, call history, nothing really important there. Messages, we looked at that. Web browser here. Obviously it's not going to connect to anything, but you know, it does have a pretty consistent theme here, which impresses me. And there is a very nice use of space. This is such a small screen, but I'll talk more about that later. But it's pretty clever, some of the things they do. So here's the media stuff. We got our folder, our file manager here, which you can browse files on the SD card, and the storage, or the internal storage, which is actually really nice. And the previous owner, I deleted most of the stuff the previous owner had because, you know, I don't want it. But I did keep all of their music. Some of the stuff is actually stuff I would have listened to back in the day, but there's, I guess it's on the SD card. There's some funny stuff on here, which I'll have to show you some clips at the end of the video. We also have our camera here. Let's take a look at that. Like I said, we have a camera shutter up here. And we got some status stuff on the side. Like I said, this does have autofocus and video recording. And it also has a flash and a little selfie mirror, which is all more than the iPhone had. So this does have a better camera than the iPhone. And you can see here we have our photos. You can look at your gallery. You can switch to video mode, and you got your settings. You should also have a zoom thing right here, although for some reason that's disappeared. But you also have your white balance. Let's take a look at settings here. Our white balance, shutter sounds, and self timer, storage destination, aspect ratio, burst mode, autofocus. This is really not focusing. Speaking of focus, let's try and get that in here. Autofocus, quality, filter. There are some filters here. We got negative, gray, sepia, and just regular color. I'm just gonna, put this here so we can have a little light going on. Let's try the negative filter. Black and white filter. And a sepia filter. Then just a color filter. And we also have our little guiding lines, resolution. Like I said, this is a 2 megapixel camera. And if you want your flash on or off. Switch to video mode here. Let's see, the zoom. Zoom is back. And we got some settings here. You can either have it set to a multimedia message limit or just unlimited recording. Quality, filter, same filters as before. Flash, storage location, little guiding. White balance, and resolution. So that's the camera. Now we got our voice recorder. Just basic voice recorder. I got an angle that's a little more comfortable here. We also have our MP3 player. Just your basic MP3 player. It does have a shortcut on here. Since there's no songs on the internal storage, I can't really do anything. We do also have an FM radio. Obviously that requires the headset. But when I used it, it was actually surprisingly good. It picked up a lot of stations and was actually pretty clear. And then we also have games and apps. Like I said, this does support Java games. I'm going to do this in a separate video. I'm planning on doing a video later on with a whole Java games extravaganza, so I'll do that later. But we have some built-in games here, which I'll show later on, and also load on some of my Java games collection on here. We got Halloween Fever, Photo Puzzle, Virus, and Pipe. And you're going to have to wait for those. And that's the media folder. So let's go to Tools. We got Alarm Clock, Basic Alarm Clock, Calculator. We do have a scientific mode here, which is pretty nice. A world clock. And you can swipe through all the different continents and time zones. Not the most responsive or fluid, but it gets the job done. We have a pretty impressive unit converter here, as well as a calendar and a memo pad. Let's open up a new memo and I'll show you why I think this T9 keyboard is clever. So when I was doing my research for this video, I noticed some reviewers actually complaining about the fact that this didn't have a QWERTY keyboard and the iPhone did. But take a second and imagine if this tiny screen had, this tiny, somewhat unresponsive screen had a QWERTY keyboard. You know, even in landscape, it would just be completely unusable. And you also have to remember that a lot of people back in 2006, 2007 were pretty fast on T9. They could, you know, type out messages really fast, you know, full sentences. There was predictive text. So people were pretty fast and used to this already. So it makes a lot of sense that they'd put this on the screen instead of a QWERTY keyboard. It just fits a lot better, easier to type on. If it'll focus, we can change, you can navigate through the notepad here, just like that. So yeah, that's the keyboard. I think it's pretty clever. That's tools. And now let's take a look at settings. So we got display settings here. We got a number of wallpapers to pick from. I don't know if you guys actually want to see the wallpapers. I guess we can take a look through them. Here's so those are the wallpapers. You can also just have a black screen. You can, of course, download images and set your own images. You got a backlight timer. Your clock widget, you can choose to have analog, dual time zone, or digital. I just have it off. Screen brightness. Theme, that's pretty fun. So by default, we have this black and white Prada theme that goes really well with the hardware of the phone. But we also have some other LG phones. Got our blue theme here. That just changes up the icons. And stuff's a lot more skeuomorphic. If we jump into the calculator here, just some different, just kind of a different color theme. Same wallpaper, but different sort of skin going on here. And take a look at the other themes here. We got the butterfly theme. Icons are the same, but the color palette is just kind of changed up, and we also have this different background for the menu. And you get a special butterfly wallpaper, which I don't remember how to... Oh, I think we have to turn off the wallpaper. Turn wallpaper off. And then we get this butterfly, animated butterfly that you can direct around the screen. It's probably eats up battery like you wouldn't believe, and it's just, it's terrible, but it's amazing. We got the fish theme as well. Fish theme has been activated. And we got this little koi fish. Thank God it doesn't have any splash sound effects. That would just be so bad. But you can sort of point the fish around. I'm going to set it back to the LG Prada one, because the other themes are just straight up ugly. What other stuff do we have on here? And then just if you want the network name on or not, whatever. We got our sound profiles, whatever, not interesting. Bluetooth, this does have, let's take a look at this. Yeah, this is all the Bluetooth stuff you can do with it. Scroll down here. Stereo headset, which is nice. So you could probably pair this with actually a modern Bluetooth headset, which I actually did try with the Motorola Razr. So you could probably get away with, you know, some wireless music enjoyment. SIM settings, I have a completely unsupported SIM in here. I think this phone is unlocked, but I just have a non-working AT&T SIM card to get this thing started up. Take a look at settings. We got, you know, date and time, battery saver mode. Actually, I'm not going to go through all of this. Languages, call settings, security, you can have a pin on there. Connectivity, like I said, there's no Wi-Fi, and this actually does only use 2G, no 3G. Airplane mode, you can reset stuff, and you can actually check storage. So you got internal memory, multimedia, stuff that's dedicated to the multimedia. You got a little pie chart there. And there's no SD card in there, so we can't do that. So that's pretty much all of the settings of the phone. Let's take a look at some of these ringtones though. Alright, so I found how to get ringtones here. Let's take a listen at these ringtones. I'm not going to go through all of these. They're just pretty, you know, they sound like ringtones pretty much. But there are some funny ones. We got Rather Mysterious Man as the title. I wonder what that could be.
I'm calling you. I'm calling you. I'm calling you.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about that. I feel a little violated. I can't imagine anyone, I mean, like, why does this exist? I kind of love it because it's just so cursed, but I mean, you know, people who had this phone probably just put this on here as a joke, but just imagine you're in a business meeting, you know, you're a successful CEO of a company, you had enough money to afford this phone because you're, you know, such a successful CEO, and your phone just goes off and you just have this British guy saying, I'm calling you. Like, what would the other people in the room, what would be going through their minds? And that's not the only one. We have Woman.
I'm calling you.
That sounded kind of terrifying. Anyways, so I don't know what it is with designer phones and narrating stuff. The Motorola Razr had the Dolce Gabbana startup. So I don't know what it is. Maybe it's an Italian thing. Maybe I'm just being extremely offensive here, but I don't know. It's hilarious. I love it. Honestly, I would be tempted to set this as my ringtone if this was my phone. But shut the phone down and take a look at some of the specs. Just play the shutdown. So it plays a little, you know, shutdown and startup tone. I guess I'll play the startup tone too. I could imagine, I mean, this is on the same level as, you know, the PlayStation 2 startup sound. It's terrifying. Like, if I was a child and I heard that startup sound, I would probably have nightmares. I mean, I might even have nightmares tonight because of this. I mean, this is... Alright, to sort of finalize the video, I'm going to read some of the specs of the phone. Feel free to skip past this if you're not interested. There's a lot of conflicting information because of this phone's sort of obscurity, but I did do my best to find the most accurate information. But do take, you know, some of this stuff with a grain of salt, such as the sales figures. I have no idea if those are legit or not. I couldn't find better sales figures, but take it with a grain of salt. Sources will be listed in the description below. Anyways, let's get on to the specs. So this phone was announced December 12th, 2006. with the official press release of the phone being January 18th, 2007. Sales started in May 2007, and the KE850 sold 1 million units within the first 18 months. The head of LG Mobile Research and Development Center believed that Apple had copied their capacitive touchscreen, which personally I don't think that's likely, but who knows. It was released just before the iPhone, but LG had been talking about it long before, so maybe, like I said, if you actually go in and look at the history of the development of the original iPhone, it's pretty complex, it's kind of intertwined with a lot of other of Apple's projects, like the iPad that was actually being developed before the iPhone, I believe. So Apple was pretty invested in this capacitive touchscreen idea for a while, so I don't really think anyone copied anyone. But we have a 3-inch screen with a resolution of 240 by 400 pixels. We have a capacitive plastic touchscreen with no multi-touch, Flash UI with Java support, and this custom Prada interface, Bluetooth 2.0, no 3G, no Wi-Fi or no GPS, an 800 milliamp hour battery, which wasn't great for the time, and today it's definitely aged, so it's not the best. But honestly, I've been kind of surprised with the battery life of this thing. It's a lot better than the Razr's battery life. We have an FM radio, which, like I stated, has pretty impressive quality. 8 megabytes of internal storage with a 512 megabyte included micro SD card in the box, and it supports up to 2 gigabytes of micro SD storage. The phone was unlocked on all carriers, I believe, and cost about 600 euros at launch, which is about $1,000 adjusted for inflation in 2020, whereas the iPhone started at about $499 US, which is about $600 US today. By the way, that 1,000 I mentioned earlier, that is US dollars, from euros to US dollars. My conversions might be a little bit off, but I mean, honestly, I'm really bad at math, and I just plugged it into a unit conversion thing in Google. But we have the MP3 player, which only plays MP3 files, but you can listen to other formats through the system file manager. We have a T9 on-screen keypad. Like I said, actually, I think it's very clever considering the form factor. The small screen makes having a QWERTY keyboard impossible, and many people back in the day were just already used to typing with T9, and you had predictive text. The big T9 keys are just easier to press and more responsive. And on a side note, I just think this phone looks really cool. I feel like I've kind of given this phone a lot of, I've kind of dragged it through the mud throughout the video, but I do think it's a really special phone, and I do really like it. It was pretty expensive back in the day. A couple of awards. It won the International Forum Design Award, the Red Dot Design Award, Best of the Best 2007, Mobile Choice Fashion Phone of the Year, What Mobile Best Fashion Phone, and CNET Asia Gold for Best Looking Phone. So, a pretty accomplished phone. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, and if you want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe. I do read all comments, so comment down below if you had one of these, or remember having another really cool phone back in the day.